At the beginning of the story, we meet a young Russian boy named Seryozha. He lives in a remote village in Russia with his mother and his older brother, Peter. One day, Seryozha sits on a tree branch overlooking a peaceful lake while his mother and Peter fish nearby. From the tree, he keeps calling out to his mother. Annoyed, she tells him to stay quiet because his shouting is scaring away the fish. Suddenly, Seryozha notices a German aircraft flying overhead. World War II is raging and German forces are invading Russia. As the plane circles above the village, his mother immediately realizes the danger. She quickly grabs Peter and hides, urging Seryozha to do the same. If the German soldiers spot them, their lives could be in danger. But Seryozha isn't afraid. Instead of hiding, he picks up his slingshot, aims at the aircraft, and launches a stone into the sky. Miraculously, the stone strikes the plane, sending it spiraling out of control before crashing to the ground. The boy celebrates his unbelievable victory. But then, everything suddenly changes. It was only a dream. Seryozha wakes up in his bed, startled and confused. Moments later, his neighbor, Aunt Anisa, rushes into the house in a state of panic. Seryozha immediately asks where his mother and Peter are. Trying to protect him, Anisa gently tells him that they have gone far away and will not be coming back. However, the young boy refuses to accept her words. He insists on finding his mother. Realizing she can no longer hide the truth, Anisa finally tells him what happened. His mother and brother were killed by the Germans. The devastating news leaves Seryozha heartbroken. Anisa explains that if the Germans find him, they will kill him as well. She wants to take him somewhere safe, but the enemy soldiers have already moved dangerously close to the village. With no time left, Anisa pushes Seryozha through the bushes behind the house and tells him to run. Seryozha races through the wilderness as fast as he can. After running for a long time, he finally reaches a safe distance and turns around. What he sees breaks his heart. His entire village is engulfed in flames. The Germans have burned everything to the ground, including his home. In a single moment, Seryozha loses everything he has ever known. Alone, frightened, and overwhelmed with grief, he disappears into the forest, desperately calling out for his mother as the fire consumes the world he once called home. But Seryozha has no idea that his mother will never return. As he searches for her, he wanders deeper into the forest and eventually loses his way. With nowhere else to go, the frightened boy spends the night alone among the trees. The following morning, Seryozha wakes up thirsty and begins looking for water. Suddenly, he spots a group of German soldiers approaching. Terrified, he quickly hides behind a tree. By now, he understands the harsh reality of war. He knows that if the Germans find him, they will show no mercy. Holding his breath, he remains perfectly still as the soldiers pass by. But just as the danger seems to be over, another threat appears. A poisonous snake slowly slithers towards him from the nearby grass. Fear grips Seryozha's heart, yet he dares not make a sound. Any movement could attract the attention of the German soldiers. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the Germans move away. Seryozha carefully climbs down from his hiding place, relieved to have escaped death once again. On the ground, he notices a piece of food that the soldiers had discarded. Having eaten nothing since the previous evening, he gratefully picks it up and satisfies his hunger. Afterwards, he continues wandering through the forest. The muddy ground and thick undergrowth make every step difficult. Suddenly, a series of powerful explosions shakes the area. Nearby German tanks have opened fire, and artillery shells begin crashing into the forest around him. Startled and confused, Seryozha believes someone is attacking him personally. Grabbing a stick, he waves it around as if he could drive the unseen enemy away. Eventually, the bombardment subsides. Exhausted, Seryozha finds a quiet spot in the forest and falls asleep. Sometime later, a group of Russian soldiers passes through the area. They discover the young boy lying unconscious on the ground and immediately rush to help him. The soldiers carry him back to their military camp. Seryozha's body is covered in scratches and minor injuries. Seeing such a young child caught in the horrors of war deeply saddens the camp's commander. Without hesitation, he orders his men to take care of the boy. The commander then introduces himself to Seryozha. "My name is Nikolai Sergeyev," he says. When he asks about Seryozha's family, the boy can no longer hold back his emotions. Tears streamed down his face as he spoke about his mother and brother. Moved by his pain, Commander Sergeyev gently comforts him and tries to ease his sorrow. Soon afterwards, the soldiers provide food for the starving boy. He is then taken to a military hospital where a kind nurse named Katya looks after him. As the days pass, a close bond develops between them. Through Katya, Seryozha learns that Commander Sergeyev is a celebrated war hero. For his courage on the battlefield, he has been awarded a special badge and a ceremonial pistol. The story fascinates Seryozha. For the first time since losing his family, he finds a new dream. He decides that one day he too wants to become a commander and defend his country. Meanwhile, life at the military camp continues. One day, while Commander Seryozha and his soldiers are talking outside, German forces launch a sudden attack. Under the commander's leadership, the Russian soldiers quickly organize their defense. A fierce firefight erupts, but after a brief battle, the Germans are forced to retreat. Several Russian soldiers are wounded and are immediately transported to the hospital. Commander Seryozha is also injured during the fighting. After receiving treatment, he visits Seryozha. During their conversation, the curious boy asks to see the famous pistol he has heard so much about. Smiling, the commander shows it to him. As Seryozha holds the weapon in his hands, he feels a powerful sense of purpose awaken inside him. At that moment, his determination becomes stronger than ever. He no longer dreams of simply surviving the war. He dreams of becoming a soldier. The commander spent some time talking with Seryozha, keeping him company and lifting his spirits. Eventually, duty called, and he left the hospital to return to the front lines. As he stepped outside, Nurse Katya approached him. She asked the commander to reconsider sending Seryozha away. Over time, everyone at the camp had grown attached to the boy. They cared about him deeply and did not want him to be left alone. However, the commander had already been thinking about Seryozha's future. Since he had lost his entire family, he believed an orphanage would be the safest place for him. Keeping a child in the middle of an active war zone was simply too dangerous. Katya argued that she could help care for him, but the commander remained firm. No matter how much they loved Seryozha, the battlefield was no place for a child. His decision left Katya heartbroken. Later, she confided to a friend that she would never forget Seryozha. The truth was that Seryozha had become a part of everyone's lives. He had formed close friendships with the soldiers, who treated him almost like family. One soldier even gave him a pair of binoculars as a gift. Another soldier approached the commander and urged him to reconsider. He explained that many of the men had left their wives and children behind when they went to war. To them, Seryozha had become a reminder of home. If he were taken away, it could greatly affect the soldiers' morale. The commander understood exactly what the soldier meant. In truth, letting Seryozha go was just as difficult for him. He had grown fond of the boy as well. But he also knew the harsh reality of war. German forces could attack from any direction without warning. Every day brought new dangers, and he could not guarantee Seryozha's safety. That very day, German troops launched another assault on their position. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the Russian soldiers fought bravely under the commander's leadership. The battle was fierce, and victory came at a heavy cost. Many soldiers were wounded, while others never returned from the battlefield. After witnessing the destruction once again, the commander became convinced that keeping Seryozha at the camp was too risky. That night, he wrote the necessary papers to send the boy to an orphanage. The following morning, officials arrived to take Seryozha away. The commander went to speak with him, but the words would not come easily. Over time, he had developed a deep affection for the child. Instead, he handed Seryozha a toy pistol as a gift. Only then did he gently explain that arrangements had been made for him to leave. To his surprise, Seryozha replied that he had been waiting for him. The boy explained that every day he prayed for the commander's safety whenever he went into battle. Hearing those words touched him deeply. Overcome with emotion, he looked at Seryozha and asked a question that would change both of their lives. "Would you like to be my son?" Without hesitation, Seryozha answered, "Yes." The commander smiled, took out the orphanage papers, and tore them into pieces. The officials were sent away. When the news spread through the camp, everyone celebrated. The soldiers immediately began preparing something special for Seryozha. Using spare pieces of clothing and old military equipment, they created a small uniform just for him. From that day forward, he would be treated as one of their own. The soldiers proudly gave him a new nickname, Soldier Boy. Later, the commander personally presented him with the uniform. As Seryozha put it on, his face lit up with happiness. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of belonging. He proudly showed off his uniform to everyone in the camp, and the soldiers laughed and cheered for him. But their moment of joy was short-lived. Without warning, German forces launched another attack. This assault was even more devastating than the previous ones. Bombs rained down across the camp, tearing through buildings and trenches. Explosions echoed everywhere as soldiers were killed or wounded. Amid the chaos, fear, and destruction, Seryozha's only thought was for the people he cared about most. Desperately, he began searching for Katya and the commander. Seryozha ran through the chaos, asking everyone if they had seen Katya or the commander, but no one had time to answer him. Doctors and nurses were busy treating the wounded, while soldiers rushed from one emergency to another. As he searched, a frightening thought entered his mind. What if the commander had been killed? For the first time since the attack began, fear truly gripped him. Just then, a doctor called him over. Looking at the boy, he said, "You're a soldier now. A soldier must never be afraid of death. If you want to help, go and take care of the wounded." Inspired by those words, Seryozha hurried into the hospital tent and began assisting however he could. He carried water to injured soldiers and did his best to comfort them. While moving through the ward, one wounded soldier handed him a letter and asked him to read it aloud. The problem was that Seryozha was only 6 years old and could barely read. Not wanting to disappoint the soldier, he began making up the contents of the letter as he went along. He cheerfully announced, "Your family sends their love and praise for you every day." Then he added, "And your cow is giving more milk than ever." Of course, none of that was actually written in the letter. The nearby soldiers immediately realized he was inventing the story, but instead of correcting him, they burst into laughter. Soon, word spread throughout the hospital. More soldiers began handing him their letters just to hear his imaginative interpretations. For a little while, the wounded men forgot their pain and worries. Seryozha's innocent stories filled the hospital with smiles and laughter. To keep their spirits high, he even sang songs for them. Later, we see Seryozha resting peacefully with his head in Katya's lap. Nearby, the commander watches them quietly. He wants to tell Katya how he feels, but every time he tries, the words get stuck in his throat. For a long time, he is secretly cared for, yet he can never find the courage to say it aloud. This time is no different. Before he can speak, Seryozha wakes up. Trying to hide his feelings, the commander simply reminds Katya that her shift is about to begin. Since it is time for her duties, Katya leaves Seryozha with him and heads back to the hospital. It is during this moment that Seryozha begins calling the commander Papa. From then on, the bond between them grows even stronger, becoming a true father and son relationship. Eventually, the commander returns to his responsibilities around the camp. Meanwhile, Seryozha finds a small knife and begins carrying it like a grown soldier. The sight is so amusing that the other soldiers can't stop laughing. Later, after helping around the camp, Seryozha proudly approaches the commander and reports for duty like a real soldier. Then he eagerly asks whether he has been assigned a mission. Smiling, the commander decides to play along. "I do have an important mission for you. A courier will soon arrive with letters from home. Your job is to deliver them to the soldiers." Seryozha's eyes light up with excitement. Receiving an official mission makes him feel incredibly important. A short time later, someone notices a bandage on his cheek and asks what happened. Seryozha proudly claims that he cut himself while shaving. The soldiers could barely contain their laughter. In reality, he has no need to shave at all. He only applied the bandage because the commander recently received a small shaving cut and Seryozha wanted to imitate him. Soon afterward, a courier arrives carrying a bundle of letters. Without wasting a moment, Seryozha takes charge of his assignment. He carefully delivers each letter to its rightful owner, moving from one soldier to another with great seriousness and determination. By the end of the day, every letter has been delivered. For Seryozha, it was more than just a simple task. It was proof that he had completed his first official mission as a member of the camp, and he couldn't be prouder. Despite his young age, Seryozha had already begun thinking and acting like a soldier. Life on the front lines had filled him with a sense of discipline far beyond his years, showing just how deeply war could affect a child. After completing his letter delivery duties, Seryozha picked up his binoculars and began scanning the area around the camp. As he looked across the fields, something unusual caught his attention. Near a patch of hay not far from the camp, he noticed a slight movement. Curious, he focused the binoculars more carefully. To his surprise, he saw what looked like a human foot moving beneath the grass. Someone was hiding there. Without wasting a second, Seryozha ran back to the camp and reported what he had seen. At first, the soldiers assumed he was imagining things. After all, Seryozha often told colorful stories. But this time, he insisted that he was telling the truth. His determination convinced them to investigate. 3 soldiers, Andrei, Gera, and Vanya, set out to examine the area, with Seryozha leading them to the exact spot he had observed. The soldiers approached carefully and silently. Andrei moved forward while the others covered him from behind. Suspecting that someone might be hiding inside the haystack, they set fire to a small patch of dry grass nearby, creating thick smoke. Moments later, a figure suddenly emerged from the haystack, coughing and gasping for air. The soldiers were stunned. The hidden man was a German spy. He was immediately captured and taken into custody. Thanks to Seryozha's sharp observation and quick thinking, a dangerous enemy plan had been uncovered before it could be carried out. News of the incident spread rapidly throughout the camp. To many of the soldiers, Seryozha had become a genuine hero. The commander was especially proud of him. Ironically, Seryozha himself paid little attention to the praise. He simply continued carrying out his daily duties as if nothing unusual had happened. Later that day, after finishing his work, he went to report to the commander. The commander had important news to share. He explained that he had submitted a request to the Soviet authorities to legally adopt Seryozha as his son. The request had been approved. From that moment, they were officially father and son. The announcement filled Seryozha with joy. For the first time since losing his family, he truly felt that he belonged somewhere again. Excited, he immediately suggested that they should tell Katya the good news. The commander, somewhat embarrassed, tried to avoid the subject, but Seryozha refused to let him. Grabbing his hand, the boy practically dragged him toward Katya. They found her sitting beside a small pond near the camp. Just as they arrived, another soldier approached her. Like the commander, he had feelings for Katya and appeared ready to confess them. Seeing this, the commander misunderstood the situation. Assuming that Katya might prefer the other man, he quietly turned around and left. What he didn't realize was that Katya's feelings were actually for him. Another day passed at the camp. Then, as so often happened during the war, the peace was shattered again. The Germans launched another attack. This time, the fighting was fiercer than ever. Although he was only a child, Seryozha refused to stay out of danger. He moved through the battlefield carrying ammunition and supplies to the soldiers fighting on the front line. The sight amazed everyone. Even seasoned soldiers were astonished by his courage. At the same time, they worried constantly about his safety and repeatedly ordered him to stay away from the fighting. Meanwhile, the commander was desperately trying to contact nearby military units. Their losses were mounting and reinforcements were urgently needed. However, relentless German bombing had severely damaged their communication network. Telephone lines had been cut in multiple locations, leaving the camp isolated. Even the commander's own field telephone had stopped working. Realizing the importance of restoring communications, he ordered one of his soldiers to repair the damaged line. The soldier immediately set out towards the damaged section, but as he climbed onto a defensive position, intense German gunfire erupted around him. Before he could complete the repair, he was shot and badly wounded. Unnoticed by most of the soldiers, Seryozha had followed him. Determined to help, he climbed after him. During the chaos, he slipped and tumbled into a nearby shell crater. Inside the crater lay a wounded Russian soldier. When the injured man saw Seryozha, his eyes widened in shock. He immediately told the boy to get back to safety before the enemy spotted him. But instead of returning to safety, Seryozha asked the wounded soldier to teach him how to repair the telephone line. The soldier pointed to the damaged wire and quickly explained what needed to be done. Following his instructions carefully, Seryozha crawled towards the broken line and connected the severed wires. For a 6-year-old child to display such courage under enemy fire was truly remarkable. Thanks to his bravery, communications were restored. The commander was finally able to contact nearby units and request reinforcements. As a result, the Russian forces managed to hold their position and stop the German advance, at least for the moment. The battle eventually subsided, bringing a brief period of calm. The following day, Seryozha came up with his own plan. He rushed to Katya and told her that the commander was seriously ill. According to Seryozha, he was too weak to eat and needed her help immediately. Alarmed, Katya hurried to see him. But when she arrived, she found the commander perfectly healthy. Only then did she realize that Seryozha had tricked her. The boy had noticed that both Katya and the commander cared deeply for each other, yet neither was brave enough to admit their feelings. Hoping to bring them together, he had created the perfect excuse for them to meet. Instead, both of them became awkward and embarrassed. Even so, the commander finally decided it was time to speak honestly. Gathering his courage, he tried to express his feelings. However, before he could finish, Katya became flustered and hurried away. The commander immediately followed her. After several failed attempts to find the right words, he finally managed to say what was in his heart. "You should become Seryozha's mother, because I am already his father." The meaning was clear. It was his proposal. Katya smiled and accepted. At last, the two of them confessed their feelings and began a new chapter together. Soon afterward, an official letter arrived for the commander. The orders stated that the entire unit would be relocating to a new camp the following day. A major military operation against the Germans was being prepared, and all available forces were being reorganized. Meanwhile, Seryozha found entertainment elsewhere. Some soldiers had brought a dog-drawn sled into the camp. Excited, he begged for a ride. The soldiers eventually agreed and placed him in the sled. At first, everything seemed harmless and fun. Then, the dogs suddenly bolted. The sled raced out of the camp and towards an area filled with hidden landmines. The soldiers immediately realized the danger. One of them jumped on a bicycle and chased after the runaway sled. At the last possible moment, he managed to stop the dogs before they reached the landmine. Once again, Seryozha escaped a potentially deadly situation. That evening, the battalion began its march towards the new camp. During the journey, German forces launched a surprise attack. Gunfire erupted without warning. Many soldiers were killed, including several men who had become close friends of Seryozha's. Watching them fall filled him with grief. But on the battlefield, there was little time to mourn. The commander quickly regrouped the survivors and continued leading them towards their destination. After a long march, they finally reached the new military camp. There, they were welcomed by a general who was eager to meet the famous soldier boy. The general listened with amazement as Seryozha recounted his wartime experiences. As always, Seryozha immediately asked about his next mission. The commander jokingly assigned him the task of inspecting the soldiers' formation and checking the spacing between the ranks. Taking the assignment very seriously, Seryozha carefully examined the lines and noted every irregularity. Then he marched directly to the general and delivered a detailed report. The general was thoroughly impressed. Within a short time, Seryozha had once again won the admiration of everyone around him. He even managed to secure the general's blessing for the upcoming wedding between the commander and Katya. The days that followed were filled with friendship, games, and laughter as Seryozha grew closer to the soldiers at the new camp. Soon afterward, the general presented honors to the battalion for its courage and sacrifices during the campaign. Because of his extraordinary contributions and bravery, Seryozha received special recognition as well. The little boy had officially become a hero. But the celebration did not last long. That very night, the Germans launched the largest attack the battalion had faced so far. Explosions tore through the camp. Buildings collapsed. Soldiers were wounded or killed throughout the night. During the bombardment, the commander's cabin was destroyed, trapping him under the rucklage. When Seryozha discovered what had happened, he immediately rushed to help. Despite his small size, he desperately tried to free the commander on his own. Realizing he could not do it alone, he ran for assistance. Together with several soldiers, he managed to rescue him from the rubble. The battle continued through the night. The next morning, the injured commander was taken to the hospital. Seryozha visited him as soon as he could.
Seeing his father figure lying wounded in a hospital bed brought tears to his eyes. The commander gently told him not to cry and reminded him to stay strong.
Over the following days, the commander slowly recovered. As the war continued, Seryozha remained by his side, taking part in many more challenges and battles. Together, they endured hardship, loss, and danger, but they never gave up. Eventually, the war came to an end. Peace finally returned. Across Russia, Seryozha became known as the legendary soldier boy, the courageous child who had survived the horrors of war and earned the respect of countless soldiers. With the commander, Katya, and the family he had found along the way, Seryozha finally had a home once again. And with that, the story comes to an end.